Another quick call, Sylvia in Durham. Good afternoon, Sylvia. What do you make of Prince Harry's work when it comes to mental health?
I think that he was the wrong word to use, but I do think he's one of the best advocates for mental health. I think he's a hero in his sphere, and I adore him. I mean, there's nothing he can do what's bad to me. I think he's a great human being. I think his wife, Meghan Markle, has had a really rough end of the stick. But Prince Harry's big problems have always been his mum. He cannot come to terms with the death of his mother, and I think that's his biggest problem. But an advocate totally for the mental health issue, a hero for his career in the armed forces.
Well said. Sylvia, thank you. Two great calls on that. I mean, I think I'm very interested to see the reaction to this Netflix series, because the conversation around Prince Harry's can be so toxic. Yeah. I wonder if people who just don't like him will not like this as well, just because it's got his name.
This might really help.
Yeah, Richard really demonstrates that you just can't be unkind when somebody is talking about whatever it is. You haven't walked in their shoase. Absolutely. It's very, very real. And I hope that, Richard, if you're still watching, do look for help.
Absolutely.
Phone the Samaritans as well.
Well, look, we're going to leave.
When the question was asked, is Prince Harry a mental health hero, a caller gave the most honest, heartfelt, and powerful response. They said Prince Harry is a great human being, the best advocate for mental health. I adore him. And in those few sentences, they cut through years of tabloid venom, royal family coldness, and the endless campaigns to paint Harry as everything but the truth, a man who turned his pain into purpose. A man who stood up against the shadows of silence, against an institution that prized stiff upper lips over human lives, and against a media machine that made sport out of destroying both him and his wife. That caller didn't stop there either. They went further, acknowledging something the British media refuses to admit. His wife Meghan Markle has had a real rough end of the stick. That is a statement packed with truth, one that echoes the lived experience of Meghan and the strength and bravery it took for both Harry and Meghan to survive in an environment designed to break them down. Now let's sit with this for a moment. Prince Harry has often been ridiculed by the tabloids and the royal apologists for speaking about mental health, for daring to be vulnerable in public, for saying out loud what generations of royals before him had to swallow in silence. But when this caller described Harry as the best advocate for mental health, they were seeing the bigger picture. Harry didn't just speak, he lived it. He admitted to the world that after the death of his mother, he spiraled into anger, into confusion, into years of bottling up emotions until it nearly consumed him. He admitted that he sought therapy, not once, not as a quick fix, but as a long journey of healing. And that act, coming from a man who was raised in the most emotionally repressed household on earth, was revolutionary. It shattered the toxic myth that vulnerability equals weakness. It told millions of men, soldiers, veterans, fathers, and even boys struggling in silence that strength is found in admitting when you need help. That is heroism. Not the medals, not the parades, but the courage to bare your soul in the hope that others will find the courage to heal too. And then there's Meghan Sussex, the woman this caller defended as having had, the rough end of the stick. That phrase might sound simple, but honestly, the reality behind it is devastating. Meghan entered the royal family with hope, with the idea that she could serve, bring communities together, and represent a more modern monarchy. She rolled up her sleeves, and whether it was working with women's charities, supporting mental health initiatives, or creating cookbooks to support Grenfell Tower survivors, she really delivered. But instead of being embraced, she was met with an unrelenting wave of hate. Hate from tabloids that weaponized her race, her nationality, her independence. Hate from royal courtiers who resented her for not bowing low enough to their outdated traditions. Hate that was fueled, orchestrated, and magnified until it became, unbearable. The rough end of the stick doesn't even begin to cover the cruelty she faced, from being accused of making Kate Middleton cry when the truth was the opposite, to having her every move dissected and vilified. Meghan was not only stripped of her privacy, she was stripped of her humanity by a press that made her their favorite punching bag. And through it all, Harry stood by her side, not because it was easy, not because it was popular, but because it was right. This is what makes Harry's role as a mental health hero even more significant. He wasn't advocating in theory, he was living it. He was applying the lessons of his own therapy and growth in real time, protecting his wife when the system around him failed her. When Meghan confessed to him that she was suicidal, Harry did not dismiss her. He didn't tell her to grin and bear it the way royals had been conditioned to do. He acted. He made the choice that his family, his real family, not the institution, came first. And that choice, leaving behind the gilded cage of royalty for the unknown in America, was an act of survival. For many, survival doesn't look heroic, but when you see the full picture, it is the most heroic thing of all. Harry chose love, life, and healing over image, tradition, and duty. He saved not just Meghan, but himself, and ultimately his children from repeating the same cycles of trauma that had already cost his mother her life. What makes this caller's words so powerful is that they cut through the noise and reflected what millions feel but are too often drowned out by tabloid spin. When they said, "I adore him," it wasn't blind fan worship, it was recognition. There's a recognition, really, of Harry's humanity, of his sacrifice, and of his evolution, from a grieving boy walking behind his mother's coffin to, well, a man willing to take arrows for his wife and children. And there's recognition, too, of the unfair treatment Meghan endured. It's honestly telling that ordinary people can see this so clearly while the mainstream media tries to spin Harry and Meghan into villains. Why is that? Because the truth resonates. Lived reality always outlasts propaganda. Harry's work in mental health is also global, not just personal. With initiatives like Heads Together, alongside Prince William and Kate, ironically the same brother and sister-in-law who would later distance themselves from him, Harry helped spark a conversation in Britain that was really long overdue. His work with Invictus Games created a platform for wounded veterans people who understood the invisible scars of war and trauma. This wasn't charity for a photo op, it was lived empathy. Harry, who served in Afghanistan, who saw his fellow soldiers suffer and die, understood that the battlefield leaves marks that don't always show. And through Invictus, he gave dignity back to veterans who thought the world had forgotten them. That is legacy work. That is impact. That is why calling him a mental health hero isn't exaggeration. It's a fact. But here's the deeper truth. Harry's advocacy cost him dearly. The royal family thrives on silence, on secrets, on unspoken pain being swallowed whole. By speaking out, Harry broke an unbreakable code. He showed that royals could feel, could hurt, could seek help, and that was dangerous. Because if the illusion of the perfect, untouchable monarchy cracks, so does their power. The same institution that should have supported him instead turned on him, leaking against him, briefing against him, and selling his pain for headlines. And yet, Harry did not stop. He continued to speak, whether through interviews, his memoir Spare, or documentaries, because he understood that the backlash he faced was worth it if it helped just one person out there realize they were not alone in their struggle. And let's not forget Meghan in this conversation. For all the rough treatment she endured, she too became a symbol of resilience. When she spoke openly in the Oprah interview about her suicidal thoughts, it shook the world. Here was a duchess, a woman in the most glamorous spotlight, admitting she almost didn't survive. That moment saved lives. It broke the stigma. It showed that mental health doesn't discriminate, and that even people who seem to have everything can be battling demons. Meghan's honesty, paired with Harry's advocacy, created a global dialogue. Together, they redefined what strength looks like. You know, strength is not silence. Strength is survival. The caller's comments, then, are more than just praise. They are a reminder that people are watching, listening, and understanding beyond the headlines. While the tabloids might scream betrayal, while palace insiders whisper disloyalty, the public sees the humanity. They see Harry, the boy who lost his mother in the most public way imaginable, grow into a man determined not to let history repeat itself with his wife. They see Meghan, the woman vilified for daring to exist in a space not designed for her, continue to shine, continue to create, continue to live. And they see both of them side by side, proving that love is stronger than the institution, stronger than the press, stronger than hate.